So in this particular session, wherein Product Space and Lizer has collaborated, we have Jeremy here with us. He is a AI solution architect at Lizer. He has built loads of apps through whiteboarding, and he will share the way he has approached them as well. And what are the ways in which you can build these things via whiteboarding, right? He was also previously the head of AI and data and standard technology, and I think he has been in this field for quite a bit of time. But Jeremy, I would love for you to add something else as well, which helps people connect with you. And I'll hand over the session to you.
Great. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, my name is Jeremy Yu. I'm based in Los Angeles. I'm the solution architect at Lizer. I also have a product background and a data science background. I started vibe coding back in February, and since then I've created over 250 demo apps. Coming from a product background, I have a perspective in terms of how I use these apps. I started on Lovable, and now I use Bolt, but I also use a lot of the same tools that you guys mentioned, like Replit and others, Cursor, of course. So since we have a wide variety of experience in the audience, I wanted to kind of give a brief overview, but I also wanted to make this session productive by actually creating an app from start to finish as much as possible. So while I go over kind of the high level, if you guys have any ideas for what kind of app that you guys would like to build together over this hour and a half, please post it to the chat, okay? So great. And then so can you guys see my screen okay? Can you guys give me a thumbs up if you can?
Yeah, we can.
Perfect, okay. So I'll share with you some slides just to kind of reinforce concepts. And in the slide, you might see Lovable and Bolt used interchangeably. This is because I gave a talk a couple of weeks ago on Lovable, but I'd actually like to encourage you, at least for this weekend, to use Bolt. And this is because it's free all weekend. You have like 20 million tokens free. And so, we're going to take advantage of that. Bolt is my current tool of choice anyway. So I can give you some tips in terms of how to use that, since all of these different tools have slight differences in how you work with them. Okay. So before I get started, I want to show you an app that I created. This is a AI content strategy generator. You can see here's the business value. This is actually created. The screen you're seeing is actually part of the app. You can create welcome modals that explain, the details of every tab. I would recommend that. This helps create like a self-learning tool to allow your users to use it without explanation. So here's the app. You can see here that there's a welcome modal that pops up that have sub-tabs that explain, what each tab does. You can also click this "Don't show it again" and hit to get started. So this app was actually the first vibe coding app that I've actually created. This took me like all weekend because I didn't really know what I was doing at the time. And even simple things like adding logos was like a big deal, like to get it right. And so the way this app works is, and you can see I kind of overdid this. The point of this app is that you enter a campaign goal here, and there's some pre-entered examples. And then I also somehow entered these different categories so you can click to get other suggestions. But then you click generate marketing strategy, and you would have an AI behind the scenes generate a marketing strategy based on what you want. In this case, promoting a fitness app to college students. It would summarize your marketing strategy that's AI generated, provide target audience segmentation here. You can see it's nicely presented, similar to like Esri segments. You can see it recommends a channel that you should target, a budget, including ways for you to adjust the budget and evaluate the impact, and even a timeline, okay? So this is based on demo data because these pre-written scenarios. When I created this demo, my goal, since my current role is in sales, is really to show the art of the possible, and I don't want it to break, and so this is why I designed it this way. However, so you can kind of see here, since this is my first demo, it's a little bit, the navigation is a little bit hard. But you can see here on the lower right hand or left hand corner, there's this toggle for live AI mode. What this will do is this will actually activate the live mode. So now I can type in anything. So I can type sell by coding to product managers. And so this will actually use the right API. I'm not saying that this strategy is the correct one, but you can see that this takes a little bit longer because it's connected to a live API. This is actually the Lyzr platform connected to the agent that I created. And so it's going to return the response in JSON format, and then this app is going to display it similar to that simulated data. Okay, so so this is why I built the demo mode, because this takes longer. I'm not sure. There's a lot more dependencies, and so I don't want it to crash. So you can see here I put vibe coding, and then so it'll come up with, you know, a set of targeting goals that that's provided. There's also a chat assistant down here, so I can ask questions about it. Again, it's the same type of data, the channels, strategy assistant down here, the budget, the timeline. So at this point, I was really just trying to figure out like a way to display the interaction between AI agents and the human in the loop. And like I said, this took me, you know, all weekend, but I did come up with a couple of design patterns that I've adopted and continue to use. One I've already showed you, which is that welcome modal. So if anytime you hit that about button, it just pops up and you can understand. The other thing is this developer tab. So for any app that I actually plug in real APIs, I always like to put a developer tool so that I can actually look at the response. So when I created the AI agent on Lyzr, and in my agent instructions, I specified to provide the response in JSON as well. And so JSON provides a structured way to communicate with your front end from your AI agents. And so you can, and this allows me and you to debug, you know, the different parts and confirm that the right information is displayed. Okay, so this is, like I mentioned, this is my first app. Let's take a look at what the chat said about creating something. So let's see, designing tool micro SaaS would be very helpful, community-based social platform, people share their projects. Okay, great. So I'm an AI helping. So a couple of tips, going back to my slides. So whenever, because I'm in sales and my job is not to build production ready apps, but rather it's to build demo apps that are really design ideas, or rather ideas for a solution that involves using AI to solve a business challenge. The way I create my apps is intended to facilitate that. And what I mean by that is that I usually don't use real APIs in the back end. This is because having real APIs, you know, uses credits, and typically I go through the demo many times while I'm developing it, testing it. And so typically what I do is I use demo data. And I'll show you in the prompt instructions how I specify what I want to do to the bolt and lovable and the replets. Okay, so was the AI agent created in the backend using Lyzr? Yeah, so that's a great question. So before I continue, let me actually show you that agent in the backend for that marketing content generator. So here I'm on the Lyzr platform, and for those of you who don't have an account yet, I would encourage you to, because the account sign up is free. Let me search for that agent. So here it is, the campaign strategy and Copilot. Here are the agent's instructions. This agent is actually based off of OpenAI and GPT-4 Mini. And the instructions is about, and you know, this is just high level, but it's about, you know, design a marketing campaign brief. And then I'm giving it a bunch of objectives, of things to provide, rather, creative content suggestions, ad copy, timeline, right? These are all the different tabs. More importantly, I put provide the structure JSON for another agent to parse and create the charts around. So so I can test it once I've defined the agent. This is where I can tune the instructions. So if I selling vibe coding to product managers, so I can test it here, right, to see how that agent would work. And so you can see that I can use this right-hand panel to test the output that I get from my agent to ensure that the information that's coming out is what I want. And at the bottom, you see that it provides the exact same information, but now as JSON payloads. And this allows me to copy and paste this example output into the vibe coding tool, and then have it build the data off of this example output. And so that next time, and then I would also tell the vibe coding tool this inference, because each agent is really one line of code. And so you can copy and paste that, give it to your vibe coding tool, tell it to use that endpoint to call your agent, and then you also provide an example of the response. And then that's how you can kind of build that connection between your front end and your back end. Okay. The back end, this provides decoupling between your agents and your front end. Each agent is super flexible. You can have manager agents, which manage other agents that you have, and you can just specify how this agent interacts with that sub-agent. And then we also have workflow builders that allows you to orchestrate complex workflows, including things like conditionals and so forth. Okay. So going back to vibe coding, typically this is our sales process where we have a customer meeting, and if there's something that they need to buy, a lot of times their business process will detail it out like in an Excalibur workflow like you see here. But a lot of times when they have some kind of problem that they want to solve, it comes to me. And so what I do is I take that problem and I build a demo app around it. And I do this with vibe coding as well as the customer, notes. And so, I've spoken with the team about it, and what the demo app allows us to do is accelerate the process of understanding what the solution should look like. So it'll have a lot of features. We don't have to build all of them, but it allows us to kind of be more like a whiteboard of ideas. And so I'd like to show you a few of them. So this one is something that we presented to the Finance Innovation Lab. Let me just kind of go over it real quick. So just to talk about the different features. So this is kind of, putting together a lot of different things. So what it's trying to do is, so first of all, we incorporated dark mode. So sometimes it looks better for presentation, but this is called Agent Amadeo. It's named after the founder of Bank of Italy, which became the Bank of America. But at Lyzr, we really sell what we call OGI, Organizational General Intelligence. And that is around having all of the different systems and agents within your business processes all connected. And so this is showing in an orchestration engine for banking and finance. On the left-hand side, you see a lot of connected systems. These are color-coded. You can see here data sources, AI, ML engines, internal teams, external teams, and so forth. I know this is super busy, but let me show you some of the features that I've built in here to make it more flexible. So I built a settings tab where you can adjust the simulation speed, for example. So these are some of the things I would recommend. You add controls in your apps. I can turn off the group boundaries and even the node. So you can see here, it's a lot simpler because I took out the group boundaries, but then I can also deselect some of these targets to make that the graph even simpler, like if I wanted to explain what it meant. And then I also added controls like being able to pause this stream and so forth. And then also, some live interaction down here. So this is really a one-page simple app. You see it kind of combines some design elements to provide greater control. All of the data simulated. I typically like to use simulated data. This allows me to show this demo off without fear of confidential information. A lot of times I create these demos without a lot of specifications from the user. And so this also allows me to kind of just project, some ideas of what the solution might look like very quickly without having to dig deep into and probe. Okay, so AI vendors versus, so let me take a look here at the examples because I really want to get started with how to build it. Okay, so community-based social platform where people share their projects. Okay, let's go with that. Okay, so there's a few examples here, so I'm just gonna copy and paste this from LinkedIn. And then the first thing that I do is I go to a ChatGPT, and what I'll do is I'll use ChatGPT to develop a PRD. So I'll create. So I'm just being a little bit more verbose, just so that you guys can understand what I'm doing here. Create a PRD or demo app for this. Think of AI-powered features that would be intuitive Wow, audience, right? You can be very high level. Okay, so now it's going to create a PRD for me. What's great about like ChatGPT is that it can go very deep on a topic. So I've been using this for a while to do this, and so there's a bit of knowledge base about how I create my PRD. So you can see here that it does a few things already without me having to specify. One, it gives it a name, including a tagline. I always like to put a tagline in there just because it kind of allows me to specify exactly what this app does. It provides an overview, core objectives, how the tabs should look. So as part of the instructions, I specify that I want each tab to be a separate task, and this allows me to kind of show the customer much more clearly how the agents work because they're all modular. So you can see here the tabs core sections. There's the home feed, create project tab, discover, inspire, community profiles, insights, right? This is just laying out the tabs from left to right. There's some AI features that it provides, and then a tech stack. So this is just some of the libraries to use. And then of course a demo mode. So what I do is I'll just copy this and then I'll go back to here. And so the reason I want to recommend or will use Bolt is because it's free this weekend. So throughout this hour and a half, I'll walk through some of the features of Bolt to let you get started easier, but it's very straightforward. I just paste in the PRD into the big chat here. I typically delete, the first and ending, so this is nice clean project requirements. And so you can see here that I actually pasted a lot, and it's going to think for a bit, and then you'll see it'll probably compliment me on how comprehensive the PRD is, and then start working on it. All right, so while this is going, so you can see here, I'll create a project hub, impressive, production worthy. It reiterates the core features, design elements, and then it just starts coding, right? It's creating different files. There's two tabs here, a preview and a code. If I go to code, you can see here that a lot of code is being generated now as separate files. While it's doing this, let me kind of show you around Bolt for those of you who aren't familiar with vibe coding. So let me just start a new tab of Bolt to show you. So I've already shown you the front end. You just paste that in. When you go to the settings, though, there's a few things that you should pay attention to. One is the knowledge tab. This is where you can put in a project prompt. And so I don't typically use a project prompt. I use a different approach, which is more straightforward. But what I do use is the global system prompt. So this is, a set of instructions that I'd like Bolt to kind of use. And so we'll just go through this right now since it's just creating a bunch of files. We'll go back to it in a second. But I wanted to show you what I use for the global system prompt. So like I mentioned, because I'm creating demo apps, one of my first instructions is create simulated data. So create, fake data as static scripts. That way it'll never break. Avoid API calls because it costs money. A modular architecture, right? That way that the files are smaller, they're separate files. I would rather have Bolt, Lovable, or Replit create more files than one gigantic file. And this makes it easy to maintain. Also, it would be good to learn some of the React and terminology, like, for example, using Tailwind CSS. Shed, this is actually the front end component library that I'm using. So I'll show you that in a second. And also how to, I used to have issues with it having a lot of errors because of the single quotes for my simulated conversations. And so I added that in. And then having pre-written conversations. These are displaying how AI interacts with the human in the loop. And instead of having an API do that, I actually ask Bolt or Lovable to write the script that can autoplay. Okay, task-based tabs, like I mentioned, since we're orchestrating complex workflows, I want to show it in a step-by-step sequential way to emphasize the modularity and the simplicity of how we can build these out. Tell, show, tell pattern. This is the whole welcome modal thing where it'll explain what each tab does. I'll show you some examples of that. And then toggle between the role and the user, right? So this is just some advanced things. So anyway, I would recommend that you guys explore that. So let's go back and take a look at where we are. So you can see here that if I go back to the tab where we're building our project hub, you can see that it's created a bunch of files. It's still going. if you write a good PRD, this will probably go on for over 5 minutes, depending on what you want. And then what I'll show you today is that if you follow this pattern, you don't have to spend a lot of time. You can kind of multitask. This could be running in your background. It's just a separate tab, after all, in your browser. Okay, so while that's going on, let me show you some of the reasons why I like Bolt. So what's great about Bolt, and I'll bring in I'll bring in some projects I created recently. So let me show you this one, which is Smart ICP. So this is a project that I'm working on, and this is for an intelligent ideal customer profile generator, right? If you're a business, you should want to know, you should be able to find your ideal customer profile. And so I created this app to kind of showcase an idea that I had. And so in Bolt, what happens is after you build your app on the right-hand side and you've tested it by going through the workflow, and you've validated that the features are what you want, you can publish it, and you can do that by just hitting deploy, and it'll provide a link for you to be able to navigate. I think most of you guys already know this who used it. So let me first show you what I built, the idea behind it, and then I'll go back to things about Bolt to manage things like this. So the ICP builder, the idea is that you can define your ideal customer profile. You can see here there's a few examples already. So mid-sized manufacturing companies implementing digital transformation initiatives in the Midwest, right? So you would send your ICP to an agent. It would translate what you wrote into a semantic search, and it would pre-select a number of different advanced criteria down here. So you can see some of it's already pre-selected. If you wanted to, you could browse in here and add more filters. And then once you hit start discovery, what this will do is this will go out to the internet and use a number of different search engines like Perplexity to find information about who your ideal leads are. So you can kind of see here on this tab, it's going out to a number of search engines like Exa, Google, and others. And the goal is to get information about your target companies. And these are just some demos. So you can see here that what the app did was create some fake data for fake companies. And the goal of it is to allow me to dive deep, to show detailed tabs like this. This is all synthetic data. But now I can show the customer what this app would generate, including the type of information that it would bring back, like the website, obviously, founding date, any type of funding information, since a lot of times that's public information. And then it would also list the source of where it found it, as well as the engine that found the information, right? So Google search engine results page is down here. And then the next step is to score it. So all the leads that were found would be scored against the products of that company to determine, which leads are more likely to purchase that product. So you can see where there's now lead scoring being added on this next tab. And then the pipeline tab kind of, this is for me to show how we can integrate with our backend systems like Salesforce, because now that the leads are scored, we can translate them into opportunities. The goal of this is really to manage, email campaigns with AI. And so this tab is intended to preview what the personalized email that would be generated for every lead based on the information that was found off the internet, the data that was enriched, as well as CRM information like past purchase history. Not only does it show the preview, but it also shows the sequence. Now, the key thing is that, even though that the email copy itself is not really that important, I'm really just trying to show the progression of how humans would work with AI. I wanted the email content, of course, to look real enough so that people can browse through and glance, and it makes sense. But it's really showing the feature of how the preview would look. And then, of course, orchestration. This is once you approve the preview, you should be able to manage email sequences, email campaigns. There should be AI that would provide key metrics in terms of deliverability, engagement rates. This is showing how the user could personalize the email by using different tokens in terms of setting up the template, and maybe AI would provide some guidance in terms of the best send times, right? And then we got rich analytics again. One of the things that I wanted to focus on for this ICP is really generating alerts. Since we have these engines that are scouring the internet, we should be able to track different events that happen with our leads, like funding rounds, partnerships announced. This tab is intended to provide manual triggers that the customer can set for those alerts. And then this is where once we have a lot of data, we can provide predictive information in terms of ROI, lead scoring, and so forth. You can see the attribution by source. Since these different search engines cost money, it'd be good to measure which ones provide value. There's AI insights down here. So just to kind of step back from what the app does for a bit, you can see here that a lot of the apps I build have a lot of synthetic data. And this is because it's much easier to imagine what it'll look like with fake data, just to see, okay, what type of insights am I going to get? What type of automation? And then, of course, it's really about putting your ideas on an app. So you can see here, this is almost overbuilt. There's too many tabs here. It does a lot of things. We're not going to build all of this in the first phase. But the goal is to throw like the kitchen sink at this. And since they're broken out as separate tabs, we can still, prioritize what we want to tackle first. So this competitive tab is intended to monitor that customer's competitors as well, right? If we can search for lead information, we should also be able to identify competitors. And so this is intended to show that, what's happening there, market trends about the industry, and some win-loss analysis, since this can plug into their Salesforce, and then even generate battle cards dynamically as their competitors change their product category. This workflow builder is also another advanced tab. This is showing how the customer can customize the sequential workflow of both lead enrichment, including parallel searches and so forth. This provides them greater control because every search costs money, and so this is intended to provide much more customizations. You can see here there's CRM integrations. And one thing I wanted to point out, so one of the things I like to do a lot is create these integration tabs. This shows flexibility of the applications. You can just integrate with any kind of data source or data systems here, and then you can hit connect. I can simulate, some of them are already connected. One thing I wanted to point out, so notice that these integrations, they have these like icons that are pretty good, but they're not really the real icons of each of these services. And so one of the things that I learned quickly is to learn the React component. So there's this Lucid Icons library. And what's great about this library is if you use it, it's got like over 1,000 icons for almost any service. So if you tell Bolt or Lovable to use this React library to provide the icons, then you don't have to use real logos, and it's pretty good. Okay.
Jeremy, hello?
Yes.
Yeah. So Jeremy, I see that we are at the halfway mark, but there are some questions that are there in the chat.
Okay.
Maybe can we just quickly have a look? Yeah.
Sure. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you perfectly fine.
Okay, great. All right, let's see here. You have a risk assessment. We use Lizer and AI. Was the AI agent created by the backend using Lizer? Yes, I showed you that. The volumes, okay. We will have to write instructions to the agent. Yeah, so what you want to do is, yes, you want to provide instructions to your agents. Those are the prompts, similar to the prompts that, like the PRD that you're providing your Bolt or Lovable. The more detailed, the better. Okay, so let's see here. Not a question related to the vibe coding, but are the problems shared by the customer, or do you identify, or is it a mix of both? Great question. A lot of times it's, I have a lot of experience in just being on different customer calls. So just by listening to what they're trying to do, whether it's, email campaigns or RFP generation, that's what I try to picture. So it's really about understanding the business process that they're trying to optimize. Okay, I'm an AI. Is it good to use the whole PRD at once or split it out into multiple tasks and share separate prompts? I think it's good to put the whole PRD at once. So let me show you what I mean. So what I've done so far, just to recap, is I pasted a large kind of PRD into the chat on the left-hand side here, and it analyzed it, generated a bunch of files, and then there's kind of like a preview, but it's pretty terrible. Okay, and so what happens is it's not going to build out your whole app all at once. And so what I like to do at this point is create like a very detailed PRD, because now there's a project. And so I'll go back to here and I'll say create detailed PRD for this app, and suggest AI features to make it great, right? So I'm being very broad and general, and that's it. And then so it's not going to generate a very detailed PRD, by tab, or kind of expand on what it generated earlier, where it's going to even specify all the different things it needs to do. It'll list out in a table AI features. It'll do some user stories, and then it'll create other categories like success metrics. And then so I'll copy this, and then I'll go back to my app. And so this is what I like to do. So instead of, as I mentioned before, instead of using the project specification, so here's all the code base. What I like to do is I like to go to the top level. So you can see here, I'm just closing, and then I'll create a new file, and I'll call this readme.md. And then I can just paste in that PRD. I'll just delete some of the things at the bottom, at the top here. Right, and then I'll save the file. And sometimes I want to use my own logo. So if I wanted to do that, what I'll do is I'll create a new folder, and I'll call it public images. And what I'll do is so let me actually just pull up an old logo here so you can see, and I'll drop it into the Lyzr logo. The reason I'm showing you this is because if you have a specific logo that you want to use, it's much easier to. So let me actually just go to so let me see Lyzr logo. The reason I'm doing this is because if you just ask Bolt or Lovell to go out and find a logo, it may not come up with a good one. So what I like to do is create a folder, like you see public images, and then I'll drag and drop the logo in there to use. So you can see I put Lyzr logo cut, and then I can write in my uploaded readme.md file, review and implement, added use logo in public images. Okay, so the reason I'm showing you this is a great way for you to communicate, in very little prompts, a rich set of instructions, because it's all detailed in that README file, as well as specific files to use, like specific, like the logo. That way, it's not going out to the internet and finding a logo that may not be the one you want. Okay, so as you can see, it's going to go ahead and code more and build out the app. Okay, so let's go back to the questions. All right, so Ruchak, it's mostly a mix. Requirements are shared by the customer what output they want. We figured out the best approach to solve that problem. Okay, I once did a project requirements by requirements and then try to get in the full-fledged PRD. The full-fledged PRD did better. Yep. Okay. I face more issues. Does anybody want to come off mute and mention a problem they have? I'm going through the questions. Let's see. Could you shed some light on how you can decide what kind of instructions you need to provide in Bolt? Yes, I'll cover that. What is a global system prompting thing explained in Bolt? What is a global system prompt? So the global system prompt are instructions that you want to give Bolt that go across your projects. As you can see here, I've got a large number of projects that I've created with Bolt. And so those global system prompts are, broad instructions, such as creating synthetic data, build modular separate files, like some of those instructions I showed. The project instructions are something that you can also use that's specific to that project. Like I mentioned, I could actually come here in settings and under knowledge, enter something for project prompt. And in fact, actually, you can see that it's actually did that for me. It entered some information there. There's also a global system prompt. So you can use both to manage the instructions that you provide the AI. Okay. Okay, join in advance. What's that? I'm late to the party. Can you explain this functional or just static website? Yeah, so what I'm showing you here is they're static websites in the sense that the conversations are hard-coded. They're actually separate files within the demo app. And the goal of that is that I'm really just showing how AI would interact with a person. The reason I'm using static files is that I can control it much better. If I used AI APIs, if anything went down, it wouldn't work. And also, I can't share the demo with other people because if they use it too much, then it'll use up all my tokens. All these integrations using each APIs from the provider, Microsoft Teams, Slack. Yes, so that's a great question. We actually use the Model Context Protocol. So while this is going, let me go back to the studio to show you what I'm talking about. So let me go back to the studio. What you want to do is focus on the vibe coding tool on the front end, like how it works. Once on the back end, how the agents work, when you build them here, you can actually specify the tool calling within the agent. So for example, if you need to connect with Gmail or Outlook or any other tools, you would do that at the agent level. So you can see that under tools, there's a number of this is just a sample of the very popular ones. The Lizer platform supports MCP, so you can just paste in the Open API schema, and you can create a tool. You can see here that I've connected to a Gmail account for demonstration purposes. You can also connect to any data source. So things like if you needed an agent to pull information from Salesforce, you could easily do that as well. Okay. And then so that's again like the decoupling of the front end from the back end. Okay, how to integrate LucidIcon's library to Lovable. Perfect. So you just basically specify that in the prompt. So I'll show you what I mean. So you can see here that it's finished coding for a while, and so you can see that it came up with a draft. This is not that great, right? And so let me show you how giving prompts now to kind of get it back on track. So one React library that I really like to use is called Shaden UI, right? It looks like this. It's a component library. It's really nice, crisp, black and white, but it's very clean. Actually all React component libraries have their own websites. And so by kind of understanding or just, here's a few that I've kind of saved. So Chakra is a different one. There's like a playground. You can kind of see how it looks like. So if you spend time kind of just browsing to find React libraries that you like that LucidIcon one, then you can specify those specific libraries to bolster Lovable. So for example, I mentioned that I really like this one. So yeah, this one, the Shaden. So I could just copy the website name and I could say use for, and then I can just write what's next. And because that I provided a rich PRD in the README file here, then I can just ask the AI, what's next in the feature in the roadmap, because it basically builds in sprints. So now you can see here, perfect. Let's integrate Shaden to elevate the component library and create more. And then now you can see here that's creating more files. Once you've used these tools enough, you really want to get it so that it's creating files as opposed to updating files. Because if it's updating a small set of files, there's a larger chance that it'll go out of the context window and then it'll break. And so these are just some of the tips and tricks that I've learned over the last few months in order to avoid frustration. Okay. So working with AI, it's a learning curve because these AI platforms are changing, right? As they add new features, many of these platforms haven't even been around for a year. I know that Bolt has changed a lot over the years. So you can kind of see already what I like about Bolt, where it's very easy for you to interact with the code, create new files. Lovable, I don't believe that by right-clicking you're able to create files directly. I think that you have to do that in GitHub. Okay, so while this is going, you can see it's creating a bunch of files, which is what we want. Let me just go to a different Bolt session to show you a different app. So let's see here. Yeah, so whenever I give a demo for a customer, whether it's customer service, I'll show you this one because I spent a lot of time on it to make it look more real. So I'll use this example just because I'm sure everybody's familiar with NVIDIA. But like if you wanted to do customer support, one of the things I like to do is, like I mentioned, create these interactive demos. And you know, because NVIDIA has such a diverse product line, you can imagine, like I had AI come up with all these different scenarios of things that could go wrong that somebody would want customer service. So I'll just play this, but so you can see what the value is of automating the conversation with static conversations. Like one, it plays beautifully. I know exactly what it's going to do. What I'm showing here is how you can have multiple agents handle customer service that can seamlessly hand off to each other depending on, you know, what the problem is. So, so in this conversation, somebody has a problem with one of their, you know, data center chips or something, or on their laptop rather. And then so you can see that the support companion agent, you know, speaks first, tries to understand and probe on the problem, and then a detective agent would come in and you know, understand the problem in much more detail. It could hand it off to a technical expert in terms of any kind of you know, issues that they're aware of, and so forth. You can hand it off, and then finally somebody could summarize it. Now the thing with this demo is it shows a few things that I think that I highlight. One, it's the ability to make it more personal by adding the logo itself. And you can see it's not even perfect. The logo doesn't match the background. I'm still doing things where it's tab by tab. And I'm also using, I told Bolt and Lovable to use animation, like in those autoplay, just to make it a lot better. So for example, you can see in this this other demo for a data center outage. The goal of this is to show how the agent can understand the severity of the problem. And so for something like this, where there's a data center outage, it's going to understand that right away and escalate it to a human, right? Because this isn't something that AI could solve. And so this is showing how they can understand the problem and do that. But one thing I wanted to point out here is that you know, the speed. So I can adjust the speed of the conversation depending on, you know, what I want to see, or if I give this to another salesperson to give the demo, right? This allows them to customize, you know, the experience. As I mentioned, I like the idea of welcome modals and the idea of bringing them up whenever you want. This helps remind me of what demo that I built. I can also instruct AI to create, you know, a tab by tab detailed instructions of how it works. Okay, and building something that is very straightforward. So let's go back to our app and see what's happening. So you can see here there's a problem. This typically happens. You can just hit the attempt fix button, and it's improved a lot so that it doesn't really. It'll usually fix it after a few iterations. Sometimes it doesn't, and so you'll have to use more advanced techniques like exporting to GitHub in order to export to using Cursor or something. So you can see here it's the missing tailwind animation is done. Okay, so let's go to the preview. Okay, so you can see here that it's much nicer, right? From what we had before, we have the Lizer logo now put in based on what I put in. It's also followed my instruction and created a lot of fake data. You can see here it took some stock images. And so let's take a look at what it's done. Discover amazing projects, explore the latest innovations from our weekly creative community. And then so what I do next is I browse through the tabs to figure out what's working. And you'll typically find that a lot of things don't really work. Like a lot of the buttons don't work. I can't click on this tile, right? It's really just the first version, okay? And then sometimes, but you can see here that I can create a project, I can discover projects, something to provide inspiration, right? And I can hit that generate button and generate new ideas. So you can see here that I didn't build any APIs, but it looks like, you know, there's API working here because of my prompt instructions. And yeah, so this is my first time seeing this, but it looks pretty good. There's not a lot of errors. And so now there's this AI recommendations. Okay, so without really doing anything, I'll just type in what's next, like what's next on roadmap. Right, and now I'm depending on that PRD. I just wanted to execute the PRD and figure, and it's going to give me a status update. So this is also a project manager. At this point, the persona that you want to play is kind of like the executive, where you're evaluating this app as if you were the customer to understand whether you understand the flow and how it works. Okay, so now it's giving me a lot of output in terms of phases, looking at the current implementation. Okay, immediate next steps, backend integration with real data. We're not going to do that. AI integration, the magic. So what I like to do is I like to copy and paste the ones that I liked that I wanted to focus on next, just because it's easier. Real-time features. Okay, we'll do that. And then also it's a lot easier so I don't have to type. Enhanced AI capabilities. That's something we want. And mobile performance. And then so I don't like to put too much in there because if you put too much, sometimes it only does the first few and forget about the last few things. So, but I did put in a lot. So I put in, you know, I copied like 3 of the sections that it wanted, and I didn't write anything else. It'll understand and start implementing those sections. Great. So now it's going to start implementing the AI integration and real-time features, transform, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so let's go back to our other apps. All right, so once you've created a few of them, one of the things that you might want to do is to save tokens by copying them. So let me show you how that works. First, let me show you a demo that that we've been building. So let's say for like the banking one, this is kind of like a format that we've adopted here, where the first tab is like an agent gallery. So this shows each agent, right? You can interact with each agent directly like this. There's also this OGI tab, which shows the network graph, right? And you can click on each one and it'll bring up information about it. There's also an assistant here. You can bring up the welcome modal. This demonstrates how you can talk to all the agents in a holistic way. And of course, we have analytics and insights that will track things like the agent performance and usage, and responsible AI to show how we can have governance frameworks and ethical guardrails to monitor the agents. Okay, so this format with the 4 tabs, let me show you something. So CFO, super agent. So you can see here's another version of it, right? It's slightly different. It's like an earlier version. So the idea is that once you come up with a format that you like, you should use some of the tools in order to reuse some of the components. So while this is happening, our project builder, I'm just going to go to a different tab. And let's say that we like, let's see, what do we like? So inbound SDR. So let's just say, actually, this Agent Amadeo. So this is an app that we showed at the FinTech Innovation Lab last week, and for the banking industry. Let me see if I can pull this up. Okay, perfect. So it's now pulling up an old demo app that I created. Okay, so there's the link. Let's say that I really like this demo app and I want to customize it for another one. So you can see here, this is the comprehensive agent platform. You can see here it follows the 4 tabs, right? Each one has its own agent. There's a demo scenario you can play. And then see, this is actually even more advanced. There's actually typing delay. I'd like to learn more about your capabilities, and then it types out, you know, the answer. And so, as I mentioned, Agent Amadeo is intended like an insurance super agent. This is showing a rich conversation. This conversation is static. It's displaying it here in a much more advanced way using animation to show, you know, how AI can be. I'm just trying to show action. And also you can see that I've asked the AI to display like visualizations within the chat conversation as well. Okay, so, and so this is one of the newest demos. You can see all the different agents. A couple of things about this. I didn't specify the details in terms of which agents I wanted it to build. I just basically said, build a network of a bunch of banking and insurance agents, and it did everything. It came up with a list of agents. It organized them. It came up with these categories: risk management, compliance, right? So I'm not a finance person, so I understand what these are now because I went through them, but just let you know, like I didn't have to specify I want a complaint resolution bot and a customer support agent. And I'm just giving it very high level instructions. So for example, you can see here that the welcome modal, when you click on one of the nodes, is much more advanced. It shows a lot of data. There's also, different autoplay scenarios. I'm showing live agent activity down here, right? So you can see here, this is a little bit more polished than some of the other OGI demos that I showed. The analytics tab also shows, a lot more detail: claims analysis, underwriting, compliance, financial reporting, responsible AI, right? Everything is just built out. Explainability, audit logs. Okay, so let's say that you really like this. A couple of things with Bolt is it's very easy to copy it. So you can see here there's integrations with GitHub. So let's go ahead and copy it. I'll hit the open in StackBlitz. This will open it up in here. I can hit this fork button. Okay, now you see it's duplicated. I'll just call this right, I'll call it product team. And then I'll just open in Bolt again. And now this will be a completely brand new project, right? That's a copy of Agent Amadeo. Then I can just, what I would do then is come here, overwrite this README file with my new instructions, and then provide instructions like, I've updated the README file, change it to that app, right? And so what it'll do is it'll delete and change the demo scenarios to reflect something else. And then, of course, this is a completely separate app than the original one. In fact, if I wanted to store it, it's its own GitHub repository here. So I'll just team, for example, and it's that easy. And so now I've got both a brand new project that's based off of something I already know I like, and also it's like, for example, if I could say, I can just write things like change this app from banking and finance to HR. Workforce management. Okay, so this is going to be a large project size. You'll get this warning. This is because this app is already fully built out. It already understands all the instructions it needed to build all this out. And now I'm kind of telling it to, another set of instructions. So this is a little bit tricky because this is such a fully built out app that what I have to do is I'm probably going to have to trim this app down. And I'll show you that in a second. But while this is transforming this app, let me go back to our original app. Okay, so now we see we have an error. Okay, I can't even see the preview, right? So it says it's fully intelligent. So now I can say, what's next? Even though I can't see the app, it's okay. I'll fix it by the next round. I just want to show you kind of like shortcuts so that you can multitask and still build out an app. If I go to code, you'll see that there's a rich, code base that's already built. Everything's, nicely structured with subcategories. Okay, great. So now it's giving me a summary of what we have to work on next. Phase 3, production ready backend authentication. We're not going to do that because we don't want a database right now. I'm just going to fix that error. So let's go with option A. It also gives you a recommendation, backend reality check, smart discovery. I like this, right? Because we're still building a demo app. Collaboration hub, AI content magic. Okay. So let's see what it does. Let's see if it can fix this error first. And then I'll go ahead and ask it again to see what directions you want to go. But in the meantime, let me take a look at what the chat window says. How do you use your design system in Bolt? So like I said, it's learning how to provide input to Bolt, and that's by the README files. It's also using the project and global settings, and then it's also kind of like a design pattern of, for example, simulated data as modular separate files, specifying specific React libraries to use, like Lucid Icons or that Shaden CN. Okay, hi Jeremy, in cases where I integrate an LM in my system, how should one go about optimizing the LM model such as it doesn't hallucinate? Perfect. Okay, yeah, how do I make sure the model gives me right? So that question from Arbaz is about how when you build your agent in Agent Studio, so let me go back to our platform. The best way to make it so that it doesn't hallucinate is you have a knowledge base behind that agent. And so when you create a knowledge base, you can upload content such as, in this case, PDFs, docs, whatever. And so this will serve as the source of truth for your agent. So then once you have an agent, you can just turn on a knowledge base and select it from all the different ones you've created. And you can have some control over like chunks and retrieval type, right? So, and also specify the score threshold. I think that we should probably have a more in-depth dive in terms of how to use the Lyzr platform to create much more sophisticated agents. It's probably outside the scope of this current workshop to cover that right now, since I wanted to focus on just the bolt and lovable aspect of it, if that's okay. How can I integrate real APIs? Perfect. So if I don't want demo data, great. So let me show you how that would work while this is going. Let me see here. Okay. Let me get this started first and I'll answer your question. So what's next? Okay, so now it's going to think again. Let's see what it created insights. What did it? Okay, so it added this community page. You can connect to different people. Okay, so great. So immediate next steps. Test and validate AI features, blah, blah, blah. AI stored enhancement. So let's do that. Project remix generator. Okay, add missing core features. We definitely want to do that. And let's just stay there for now. Okay, so now it's going to start working again. And then I'll show you how I can build that app. So if I go back to Lyzr Studio, when I build any agent, that agent is really just one line of code, like this inference. And you can see this, it's like this post call. And so I would copy this and go to my bolt or lovable, paste it in and say, this is the endpoint you should use to call. And then what the other thing I would do is, oops, sorry. So I have agents like for that marketing agent that I showed you, campaign strategy copilot. So again, I can enter any marketing goal. I can evaluate it. And what I would add is so once I would verify it, like in human text, see how it provides JSON. I could just change my instruction and say, yes, only provide. Right, and I mean that's probably not the right one, but then I can update it. And then now it's been updated. Now I can write that again. So selling ice cream, right? And so now when it generates actually hold on. So actually I'm not getting a agent saved. So there might be some issues with saving the agent right now, but the idea is that by changing the instructions to only provide JSON right now, because this is an agent that I'm using to show off the demo, it's showing both the text and the JSON. What I would do is change the instructions so it's only providing the JSON, and that way when I can copy and paste this into the app, and so it'll use that format. Okay, do you provide the demo data to the AI agent, or does it creates its own demo data? And I'll show you what I mean. If I go back to here, so it's still working. Thanks, it answered. AI creates its own bolt new. The repo, it works. Okay. Which Lyzr tool agents use the updating the Excel data? Which Lizer tool agents do you use for updating the Excel data in the workflow? Great question. So there's a number of so there's a couple of things you can do on the front end to help you format some information. So for example, let me show you this lead enrichment app that I created. So actually, this is the product demo one. Let me go back here. So this is the Agent Amadeo. Okay. So this is actually a real app that I created. And the reason why you can create real apps is you can easily integrate, at least in Bolt, with a database in the background. Oh, shoot, something's happening. So what you can do is you can connect to a Supabase. Let me see if this is just happening with this tab. Can you guys still see my screen okay? With the thumbs up? Okay. Okay, great. Perfect, thank you. Let me, at least that our main project looks like it's still working. Let me confirm. So one of the other reasons why you want to instruct it to build separate modular files is sometimes your internet may hiccup. And if it does this in the middle of a giant file, then it has to kind of rewrite that file. Whereas if you have instructed to create smaller files, and then it just has to, work on the file that it was working on at the time. Okay. Let's see. I'm trying to look at if there's any any new chat messages. Let's see. Can we share a screenshot of the GUI layout to Bolt or Lovable? Would it replicate the same, or are we expecting to see exceptions? Let's say we know exactly what we need. Okay, great. If you know exactly what you want to look like, you can paste in screenshots here into the chat window. So I'll just show you what I mean. Like I could just take a screenshot and say, like hold on, I don't want to do it. Okay, so that's the app we're working on. So let me see if I can just, yeah, I won't submit it, but you could just type in something like make app look like, and then paste it in just like ChatGPT. Okay, and then I'll make the changes. And so like for things like this, like a specific picture, the way I did it was, in images, I actually put in the image I wanted to put in, as I mentioned. Let's see. Anyway, let me know if this is kind of like what you're looking for, if you want me to pivot. I know that we only have like 20 minutes left, but I want to make sure that this is useful for you guys. How much average time does it take to learn all the things that you should for a newbie? I've been doing, so let me show you how many of these I've created to give you a sense. What I like about Bolt is actually when you publish your project, it actually goes to what's called Netlify, which is like a partner of theirs. And so each project has its own kind of tab. So you can see here, I have 20 pages and each page has 12 apps. You can see how many I've created, like, 19 hours ago, 2 days ago, 3 days ago. And because all of these are, using synthetic data, I can maintain over 200 apps without worrying about any of them breaking, because there's nothing about them that can break. And so let me show you how it works. When you publish an app, it gives it like some kind of name like this, like Elegant Pudding. So some kind of, and then what you do is I can take a look at this. Okay, so this is my Smart ICP generator, which I already showed you. It's a version of it. So I can go to my project page, hit project configuration, change project name, and I can just, very easily change Lizer Smart ICP. I'll just call this 2. And then it's that easy. Now I have a brand new URL, or whatever I wanted to call. So, so this is another reason why I like Bolt, or rather, yeah, because of the integration with Netlify. Netlify is super flexible. Not only can you publish it from Bolt directly, like you can see here, it says deployed from Bolt. You can also add a project from GitHub. So I showed you earlier how you can create a project in GitHub very easily from Bolt. Now you can import an existing project. Just click on GitHub. This will take you to GitHub, and then you can just pick which repository that you want to use, like this one. Give it a project name, like Jeremy Test 2, and you can pick which branch to deploy. I only have one, and then just hit deploy. Oops, branch deploy. So So anyway, like typically this will work. You just hit go and I'll deploy, and I can show you some examples here. Right, so I haven't had to do this for a while, but typically what I'll do is if something breaks and I can't get it to fix, I'll create a new branch in GitHub, so that I can bring it to Cursor and try to fix it there. So I haven't had to do that in a while. So you can see here, but yeah, so it's been at least a month. I think it's improved a lot. So, but that shows you the flexibility of the platform. Okay, great. So since we only have like 20 minutes left, I'm going to go back to here. Look at the app. Okay, so here we are. You can see here it's a lot more built out than we had. Right, we have recent, we have nearby, we have this create project, discover, inspire me. There's a community tab. Okay, so insights. So okay, so you see how this is kind of broken. So now I have to attempt to fix. For the last thing, I want to create a welcome modal just to show you how easy it is to do that. And if there's any other requests, please post them to the chat now, and I'll try to get it done before the end of this session. Okay, so while that's going on, let me show you. Kind of go back to the tab. So, you know, so I use Lovable or Bolt to kind of build the interface. To show. Sorry. Okay, was that a question? I'm sorry if I wasn't able to hear that.
My mistake. Yeah, for someone.
Okay, no worries.
Yeah.
So yeah, so just at a high level, the Lovable presents the front end, Lizer will present the back end. The two of them work really well together to accelerate development. Let's see. Yeah, so we even have a PRD generator, but the PRD is super critical. Let's go back to the let's take a look at the app that's building. Let me show you back the PRD. What's so great about the PRD is this provides at a high level, like all the features that it wants. It doesn't tell Bolt or Lovable specifics, but you see that it's like create project. Yes, you should be able to upload content. It gives enough specifics like images, videos, and text, but doesn't go into specifics like what libraries they should use to do that, or what's the algorithm to match. So yeah, and then like even the AI powered features, it's very high level. Story enhancer, auto tagging, vector, right? Like this is a very, in my opinion, very product focused, because now you're just evaluating features that you should add. And then user roles, right? So there's tremendous value in using ChatGPT for that. Okay, can you summarize how to make an app step by step? Yeah, so I wanted this to be high level because my last session, people wanted to see it live as opposed to a lot of slides, and so this is why I wanted to show you this. But what I would recommend is, because this weekend you get 20 million of free tokens, just take those steps that I did. So just to recap for anybody who started, it's very easy. You take your idea, and we can even do one now for new PRD. So I'll create a new chat. So I actually have to create this app. So let me just type in what I need. So I need a demo app for a customer service agent that can help with debit card issues. Think of what AI features this app should have, right? Like, so this is very, very high level. I'm barely even mentioning what the use case is. So you can see here that it's going to do a lot just based on what I said, but this is because I've built, a long memory in terms of it already knows what I want to include in the PRD. So here's what it's generated: a name, a tagline, a bunch of AI features for me to consider, intent detection, step-by-step troubleshooting system, secure entity extraction, right? Like this is enough for me to evaluate. Like, so the beauty of Replit or Bolt is that looking at your features on a table like this is one thing, but being able to quickly create something that's much more visual by just copying it, that whole thing. going back here and creating a new one, and then just pasting. That's basically what we did. And then you just keep asking, and then the next step after it's built you the first phase. Just to recap again, is creating the README file. So README.md stands for Markdown, and you can provide much more detailed specifications in this file, and you can easily edit it. This allows you to kind of just use the chat window for tuning and so forth. So before we run out of time, create welcome modal for app with question mark icon in upper right. User can bring up anytime. Describe in detail the features of each tab. AI integrations and business value. Right, so very high level. I'm giving it, just telling you, I want a welcome modal that explains to users how to use this app. And I'm not going to go into detail about, what exactly they should put, but there's at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 tabs. And if I were to send this app to a person, ideally that they could understand how to use this without me having to explain it. So that's the goal of this welcome modal. Okay, so while this is going, I'll kind of, try to finish this up and take any last questions. We only have like 15 minutes left, and I know we covered a lot. Is there anything that I talked about that was unclear that anybody wants me to kind of go into in depth more? I know that there's a lot on the building the agent side that we need to cover. I wanted to focus this on, the front end, but we can have other sessions. Also showed how to integrate the Lizer agent with this app, right? So what I would do is, if let's say that I have a Lizer agent here, I would go to this agent API, go to this inference page, hit copy, and then I would over here say, the data for let's say create project tab, right? I try to be a specific tab, comes from this API, and then I'd page the endpoint, and I would write something, the format looks like, and then I would come back here and paste in this JSON, whatever payload, right? Or rather the response, and like that. And that's really all you need. So now the vibe coding knows what the endpoint is that it has to use, and the and also what the response looks like. So I'm not going to do that since it'll ruin this app. But you can see here that it's finished the welcome modal. Main sections here, and so you can see there's this question mark here. If I click on it, now you can see it's just built this right now with tab features. You can see look how detailed it created without me even having to specify anything. So this is a step-by-step of each tab, the core features, AI capabilities, and business value. Let's say I don't like this. I'll be like, add right, and then you can just kind of keep digging deeper. If it's not exactly what you want, you can just ask it to iterate, improve it. You can give it high-level instructions like add visualizations and animation. I didn't tell it what type of visualizations, what type of animations. I'm kind of just giving it broad instructions. So now it's thinking. It's going to come up with an enhanced welcome modal. The other thing is, one thing that's very important is to understand this button here, which is the discussion and build mode. The build mode is kind of dangerous because it'll start changing your code. So if you're not sure what to do, like if you want to explore options, you can toggle the discussion mode. This will just then act more like the ChatGPT. It'll give you suggestions for you to consider, but it won't actually code or change any of your code. Okay. How would you go about with Gmail authentication for demo? Yeah, perfect. Okay, so while that's happening, let me show you how that works. So CP Composio. Okay. Yeah, so there's a number of MCP providers, like the ones here, like for Gmail. So MCP, Model Context Protocol, provides a way for you to connect to any number of source systems. So like so if you wanted to create a server, it's a client-server relationship. Let's say if I'm creating for GitHub, what it would do is authenticate you. So I have a GitHub account, and so what it would do is, navigate to this, and then I authorize it. I'm not going to do this right now just so I can use it for a demo, but I've already done that for Gmail. And so since I've already authenticated with Gmail, I can create a new server. And once I create the server, you'll see that there's a number of different actions or permissions, like getting the profile, reading the email, that I can toggle and put in the permission set for this server. Once I've created that server, like you can see, I have a number of servers here. I can connect that to the Lizer platform by pasting in the Open API schema here. So I won't go into this right now since we're kind of towards the end, but I can generate an Open API schema for that Gmail connection or any other connection, paste it in here, and it becomes a custom tool like you see up here. Okay, great. So let's see. We have 9 minutes left. So it's enhancing the welcome modal with visualizations. Let me check to see if did I miss any important messages in chat?
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm working on a prototype for that involves an AI assistant. Can Lizer be used to power the AI assistant? Yes, absolutely. I think maybe like a good next step is to show you, how to build simple apps. Like I think at the beginning I showed you that marketing app that's powered by a real Lizer agent. Okay, so let's take a look at this. So it was able to significantly enhance the welcome modal. It gave me a summary of all the things it did. Let's just take a look at it. Okay, so now you can see there's animation, right? So see, it's much kind of, I don't know if you like it or not, but it did something. It tried to do more towards of what I asked. This is slightly different. There's this now, right? And you can see there's animation happening. Business value. So, right. So you can go through this, but you see like it made up a lot of information. And I would definitely, review it. But what's great about this is this is now much more visual in terms of understanding, what's the potential of this app. Anyway, let's see. Any closing questions? Is it exposed on the internet? Is it shares? Right. Yeah, that's a great question. So when we're talking about, actually integrating with backend agents, it's important to understand kind of like how it should work. So when you go to Supabase, so what I would do is you can create like a secure backend. This is relational database, Supabase. There's other databases you can do. There's also ways you can mask that endpoint. One of the things right now is on the Agent Studio, rather, that it's just an HTTP call, but you can actually hide some of this information because you can see it provides your email and API key and other open information. There's best practices of masking that within like an edge function. We can cover that in more detail for next time. Great. How can we host an app created using the Vibe connected domain brief like on AWS? Yeah, so there's lots of ways. So once you have the code, or rather once you've built the app, if you wanted to host on AWS, like Robin's question, what you would do is you would deploy it on GitHub, and there's tools on AWS, for example, that you can host an app just straight out of GitHub. I think one's called Elastic Beanstalk or something like that, or some other ones. But yeah, it's very easy from that point on. Within StackBlitz, it's also easy to do that. Let's see. There's a place, I forget, I think it's on Netlify actually. You can actually specify a domain that you want to use instead. And I think you can purchase it from them already. So I haven't done that, but if you wanted to host the app directly from here, you can do that. Okay. Any other questions? We have like 6 minutes left. Okay, so yeah, just closing thoughts, try out different vibe coding tools. Like I mentioned, Bolt is free this weekend, so that's a nice low low investment option. Anyway, were there any other questions?
No, Jeremy, I think we've covered a lot of questions, and overall, the session has been, I would say, fully complete in terms of them understanding how to break down things to actually building a lot of things themselves as well. So, folks, of course, I think there were a lot of things that were covered, and people have been messaging the same in the chat as well. But, Jeremy, thank you so much for this. It was lovely to have you here.